Hi, my name is Jason Fenwick. I'm the director of the Business Advisory Group at Windsor, Wyeth & Ward. Windsor, Wyeth & Ward is a full-service business advisory firm dedicated to growing your business. Thank you for joining us tonight for the latest in our Business Mastery series entitled The 5 Phases of a Successful Startup. Tonight we're going to be reviewing a rollout of the strategic startup initiatives. But before we get started, let's go ahead and review all of the other phases. Phase 1 of a successful startup is a strategic planning phase. This is where you come together and you plan all of the necessary things that go into a successful startup, such as finances, operations, the sales cycle, sales planning, marketing, and then the delivery of the product or service. Phase 2 is funding. You determine how much money you need, what you're going to use it for, and where you're going to get it. Phase 3 is the rollout of the strategic initiatives. That's where we have a soft opening and we roll out and introduce our product or service to the marketplace. Phase 4 is the fully operational phase. That's where the company is up and running, doing its normal day-to-day business and growing. And Phase 5 is the development of exit strategies. That's where you figure out how you're going to exit the business, when you're going to exit the business, and at which point you're going to exit the business. Each of these phases is detailed in a separate webinar, so you can go to our YouTube channel or live stream channel and just type in Windsor, Wyeth & Ward or Jason Fenwick and look for our Business Mastery series. Again, thanks for joining us. Tonight we're going to be talking about the rollout of the startup initiatives. The easiest way to think about this phase, if you're a sports fan, is to think about it like an NFL preseason football game. This is a chance where we get to test out our plays, run through the motions, check out all of our new options and initiatives in a soft opening. We get a chance to see how the market will respond, but most importantly, because it's a preseason game, we get a chance to go back in the locker room, go back to the drawing board and figure out what we need to change, what we need to bring in, what we need to implement to make our hard opening or our fully operational phase most successful. For businesses, it's a chance for a systems check. It allows you to check all of the different aspects of your particular business. Most people don't realize that when you're doing a startup, they only think about it from the sense of being successful, and they think about the big things, but they overlook a lot of little things, and this is the phase where that's brought to your attention. And so what I want you to do is think about your company and the opening thereof in terms of 4 seasons. You have the first season, which is the introduction, or 4 quarters. You have the first quarter, which is the introduction of your product or service to the marketplace. You get to figure out if you have all the things in place so that you can properly introduce it to the marketplace. And then you have the second quarter. The second quarter is where your customer gets a chance to ask all of their questions and get all of their questions answered. And you get a chance to show value to the customer, get their interest, pique their interest, and get them intrigued about buying your product. The third phase is the sales phase. This is where you go and you sell the customer, that there's some trigger in the previous phases that triggers the customer to buy. This is where you figure out and you see very clearly what it takes to get the customer to open up their wallet and send you over the money. And then the fourth quarter is delivery. Delivery of whatever your product or service is in a timely, professional manner such that the customer is fully satisfied. We like to see a company go through all 4 quarters of their sales cycle, from introduction to the market to actual delivery of the product to the customer and getting the customer's money and closing the sale down. That's a full soft opening. Soft openings just aren't delineated by time, meaning the first day, the second day, the first week, the second week. They're delineated by going through all 4 of those quarters to make sure that you are providing your customer with everything. It's only then that you can demonstrate clear value to the customer and ask them to come back and buy from you again. And it's only then that you understand everything that it's going to take to provide your product or service to the marketplace in a way and fashion that the marketplace will respond. So, one of the things you have to do when you're thinking about the rollout and the soft opening is to create a list of things to do. So let's walk through the various sections of things that you have to think about. The first is operations. Who's going to do the work? How are you going to do the work? When are you going to do the work? How many people do you need? I often like to compare this to hosting a big Thanksgiving dinner at your house and having a lot of people over. There are a lot of things that go into hosting Thanksgiving dinner. For those of you who've done it, you know. The first thing you have to do is figure out how many people are going to come so that you have enough food and enough silverware and everything else for them. Second thing you have to do is figure out a menu. What are you going to serve? Once you figure out the menu, you have to figure out what you need. You have to write up a grocery list. Figure out what you need to buy. When does it need to arrive at your house? Next, you figure out who's going to help you. Do all the cooking. Do all the cleaning. And when are they going to help you? And then lastly, you need to figure out what is the sequence for cooking. Are you going to put the turkey in first? Are you going to put the pie in first? You have to figure out when you're going to cook and what order you're going to cook. And the most important part of it is you have to be ready when your family arrives, and you have to make it look effortless. Anyone who's ever cooked dinner for a large gathering at Thanksgiving or Christmas knows just how hard that is and what goes into that. But the same is true for opening a new startup and introducing that new product or service to the marketplace and your target customer base. And so you have to be prepared for that operationally. Whatever your business is, whether it's a product or a service, you need to have broken it down into a precise sequence of events that need to occur for you to deliver it successfully, that product or service successfully to the marketplace. You also need to think about it from an administrative standpoint. A lot of times people focus just on the delivery of the product or service, but they don't think about the administrative documents or operational documents that go along with selling the actual product. They just figured that if we build it, they will come buy it. But they didn't think about if they buy it, they're probably going to need a receipt. If they buy it, we probably need to have some policies in place for returns, for repairs, for answering customers' questions. If they buy it, we probably need to understand how they're going to buy it, whether they're paying us in cash, credit card, checks, because each of those brings with it a different type of administrative burden. And so you have to have figured this out from an administrative standpoint, because nothing's worse than making a sale to a customer and them being ready to write you a check or give you a credit card and you don't take credit card, or you haven't thought about taking their check. So now's the time to put those things into place. The other aspect is finances. If you want something funny, and I've been there before, and I've had to make these runs for customers, if you're opening a brick and mortar business, it could be just as simple as having a petty cash or an opening drawer. I've been the guy who has been there and looked, and when the first customer came in and gave them a 20 or a 50, there was no change because nobody ever thought about it. Fortunately, that won't be you, because you're going to think about financially, what do you need to have in place? And that could be as simple as a petty cash drawer or an opening drawer, or it could be as simple as having certain things in place, a certain amount of money set aside in order to do special hookups, special installations, special deliveries, etc. These are things that you will have had to have thought about. The other thing is, with a startup, you may have to do a certain type of marketing that costs extra money that you wouldn't normally do in the fully operational phase. And so maybe you have a balloon or a spotlight showcasing your business shining into the star, or a giant 3-story balloon floating above your business. Or maybe you have, a cowboy on a pony out front, riding around, giving out coupons, inviting people in. Either way, and these may seem like funny examples, but true examples, you have to set aside the money to actually put those things in place so that when it's your time to attract your customers' attention, you know that you have the necessary tools in place and you recognize that those tools cost money. The last is delivery of your actual product or service in a timely and professional manner. Nothing is worse than getting to the point of getting all of these sales and then realizing that you haven't opened up a shipping account with a shipper and you haven't given them a pickup point and put it in their system. And so you have to pick up and carry all of these things to your local shipper's office versus having them stop by and just pick them up from your office. This is some of the mistakes, but the other thing is how you're going to ship it. What particular box or things you'll need to ship your product. How long will it take to ship? What is your shipping policy? What is your return policy? All of these things are things that you should have thought about in the strategic planning phase and during the rollout of the startup initiatives. That's where you're actually implementing them in a real world sense. Some of these things may seem minor, but they're real minor when they're just a concept in your mind. But when you have 200, 400, 600, 1,000 orders, suddenly these things add up, and suddenly they become excruciatingly important. And that's why we're focusing on them tonight, so that you're prepared to do your startup business. Lastly, we want to establish what your follow-up with your customers is going to be. Depending on your product or service, you need to figure out, do we send them an email? How do we follow up to make sure that they're happy? How do we gauge the customer's happiness? There are different ways of doing this, but most are dependent upon whatever your product or service is. Because you just don't want to sell your product to a person once. You want them to come back and buy your product multiple times. And most importantly, you want them to talk about your product to other people, so that when the time comes, if that person's interested in that particular product or service, the first person they think about is you and your company. All of these things are designed to maximize the market impact of your company, to maximize the exposure that your particular product or service gets during the introduction to the target market. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name's Jason Fenwick. This has been our 5 phases of a successful startup, part of our Business Mastery series at Windsor, Wyeth, and Ward. If there's anything that you've heard here that we can assist you with, please feel free to contact us at info@windsorwyeth.com. That's info at windsorwyeth.com. Also, if you'd like to get on our list of upcoming events, startup boot camps, business boot camps, or webinars, you can do so by either emailing us at info@windsorwyeth.com and putting that in the subject line, or if it's easier for you, you can text your name, email address, and contact information to 202-239-2368. Again, that's 202-239-2368. We look forward to hearing from you, and as always, I look forward to seeing you at the top.